Entering into the 2024 season, one of the biggest questions surrounding the Mariners pitching staff and rotation was who's going to be the true ace of this staff. The job has kind of been up for grabs a little bit. Luis Castillo has been holding it down and slotted as the ace. However, he did have a few rough starts in September of 2023, and when the Mariners were in the midst of a three-team race for the AL West. And George Kirby has seemed to be the heir apparent in a way, with godlike command and control, and him showing up for the biggest starts of his career. However, there's been one name that I think has been underrated in that discussion, that being Logan Gilbert. 2024 has been a breakout year for Logan. He's been showing that his Cy Young contender ceiling is legitimate, but just how good has Logan Gilbert been in 2024? And what if I told you it's one of the better overall seasons for a Mariners starting pitcher in Mariners franchise history? Before I get into that, smash the like button. You can subscribe to the channel. It's free. It helps me out a lot. But let's get back into talking about our guy, Logan, aka Walter, and the ace debate. First, I want to take a look at Logan and how he stacks up in the 2024 season against all the other qualified starters in the league. Logan is currently, as of August 18th, ranked 6th in ERA with a 2.96, 18th in hits allowed with 113, 12th in strikeouts with 155, 10th in walks with 29, first in quality starts with 20, and is first in the league in whip at 0.88. Now, you may be thinking that those rankings for whip and quality starts are awesome, but he's not exactly blowing the league away in all the other categories, which is true, and Tariq Skubal is probably still going to win the Cy Young. However, when we're talking about the ace of the Seattle Mariners, we need to look at where do Luis Castillo and George Kirby rank in those league statistics. And as you can see from this chart, Logan is pretty considerably ahead in ERA, hits allowed, total earned runs, and whip. We're getting a bit closer in strikeouts. Logan is still leading, but Castillo is right behind. Walks is the one place where Logan doesn't lead. Of course, George Kirby is leading in walks, which, duh. And the quality starts are somewhat close, but Logan is in the top of the league, as I stated before. And I want to emphasize that a bit more. Quality starts, if you didn't know, is when a starting pitcher throws 6 or more innings in one game and allows 3 or fewer earned runs. It's basically the epitome of a starting pitcher giving his team the best chance to win. And Logan leads that category not only in the American League, but in all of baseball right now. And earlier I did mention that Logan may be having one of the better starting pitching seasons in Mariners franchise history, so let's get into those numbers a bit. I looked at all starting pitchers in Mariners history through the first 25 games started in a season with a minimum of 120 innings pitched. Logan ranks 9th in ERA, 2nd in hits allowed, 12th in earned runs allowed, 18th in strikeouts, 12th in walks, 2nd in base runners allowed, 4th in quality starts, and 1st in whip. And you might be thinking I'm reaching a little bit by calling this one of the best seasons in Mariners history, with him being ranked as low as 18th in one of those stats. However, I do want to point out that this is out of 147 starting pitchers. So each one of these rankings is out of 147. And the fact that he is within the top 20 out of all of these, and in the top 10 for most of them, I think is a pretty astounding season he's having so far. So far, I've only addressed the objectivity side of this ace argument, going into stats, how they've been faring this year. So now we're going to get into the more subjective parts of this. The first subjective conversation I want to have is longevity. Longevity? The first subjective conversation I want to have is about longevity. The first subjective argument in the ace debate that I want to go over is longevity. Hey, I did it. Logan Gilbert is 27 years old, and he debuted in 2021. And looking over his stats in the first 25 games of each season, the progression to his current form has been obvious. Just this year, he's knocked off 0.81 from his ERA, increased his strikeouts by almost 10, lowered his whip by 20 points. And by the way, he's done all of that while pitching 13 more innings than he ever has. And for me, there's no reason to believe that this longevity longevity and the progression can't keep going for Logan. He's been remarked as a tinkerer, a guy who is constantly making changes to his game, either adding pitches, changing grips, anything to get that extra edge. The most notable of those changes came in 2023, where Logan added a splitter to his arsenal when he felt like his changeup just wasn't doing enough, and it became one of his best pitches. This year, it's sporting a .108 batting averaged against and a whiff rate of just over 47%, which is pretty damn good. Now, this isn't to say neither Castillo or Kirby can't improve and have longevity as well. For Castillo, he is 31 and been in the MLB for 8 years now, so his tinkering is probably minimal at this point. And with George, we know he's still adding pitches to his game. However, the jump that people assumed Kirby would have taken in 2024, Logan kind of took that jump instead. And when I look into the future, and this is totally a personal opinion on my front, I think a kitchen sink type pitcher like Logan has a higher ceiling than a command control type like George. Although George is an elite strike thrower, sometimes that can be his downfall, especially for teams that are being really aggressive with him and contact oriented. Sometimes he can give up a lot of hits. And although Logan can have blow up starts as well, every pitcher is susceptible to them at some point, there's not really a type of offense that he is more prone to. It just kind of depends on how he's throwing that day, and more often than not, clearly it's been very good. As for Logan versus Luis in that role, there is something to be said about Castillo's consistency and demeanor on the mound. He's a true veteran. He's called the Rock for a reason. However, Logan has jumped ahead of him stats-wise this year by a pretty big margin. And it begs the question if a 31-year-old Luis can catch back up in the future seasons. And the last subjective argument that I want to get into is about how do they pitch in the most important games. And for me, that would have to be against your division rivals. So that would be the Houston Astros and the Texas Rangers. Not really going to count the Angels or Athletics. We're really just going to go at the people you are competing for the AL West for. So I looked at how all three have been doing against them this year, and we'll start with Luis Castillo. He's been doing pretty good against Houston. 2 games started, 13 innings pitched. He's given up 5 earned runs, but once again, that's 2 games, so only 2 and 3 runs at those times, and 9 Ks. And then versus the Texas Rangers, also 2 games, 12 innings pitched, and 4 earned runs given up. So for both, he's only averaging about 2 to 3 runs given up per start. He's not going as long as Logan and Kirby have been, but we're about to get into that. George Kirby has also been really good against the division rivals. Versus Houston, 3 games started. He's won 18 innings, given up 14 hits and 3 earned runs, so he's averaging only 1 earned run per start against Houston, and 17 Ks. Against the Rangers, only 1 game, but he went 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 run, 0 earned, and 6 Ks. So he's been doing very well against both. And as for Logan, he's pitched 2 games against both teams. Against Houston, 14 innings pitched, so he's averaging 7 per game, and 4 earned runs, so averaging 2 per game led up on that. And versus the Texas Rangers, 2 games, 14.2 innings pitched, 4 hits, 0 earned runs, and 15 Ks. So he's been dominating that Rangers lineup. So in this case, Logan and Kirby are very much similar in their production against those division rivals. Kirby has been known for his big game starts, namely Game 3 of the 2022 ALDS and against Baltimore last year, so he certainly has that in him. And Logan hasn't had it as much, but I think this year we're starting to see that. I would point to a start earlier this year against Houston where he went 8 innings of just fantastic pitching performance there, so have to shout that out. So I wouldn't say either of them really have an edge in this. I mean, George has a bit more of the resume in those big games than Logan does for sure. However, they've both been good this year, so I'm going to leave that up to your opinion on that. So in conclusion, when it comes to the ace debate, you have to take in a bunch of factors, some of them objective, some of them subjective. Objectively, Logan has been having the better 2024, and objectively, Logan's been having one of the better pitching performances in Mariners franchise history. But on the subjective side, you have to ask, will Logan have the longevity of George Kirby or Luis Castillo? Will Kirby take that jump next year, and will Logan have regression? It's kind of all up in the air. But for me personally, I just really like Logan and the way he pitches. I really love those guys who have that versatility in their pitch mix and a more of the kitchen sink type repertoire. So personally, my vote is I think Logan should be considered the new ace of the Seattle Mariners, but I'd love to know what you think. You can comment down below how you feel, and I would love to read your comments. I appreciate you if you watched all the way through to this. Please, once again, like the video, subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot. I would appreciate it very much. That's gonna be it for me in this one, and I will see you in the next.